here are some of the best high school players on the board. Now, what do all of these guys have in common at this point? What they have in common is that they were all previously committed. And because the coaching carousel was running at such a rapid rate, when the coaches they were committed to left those programs, these players all reopened their recruitment. Now, we thought that the only exception to that is Liam McNeely, of course, who was committed to Indiana and opted to reopen the recruitment, even though Mike Woodson was staying. So to help us break down this class and where some of these top high school players may be headed, we're going to bring in Eric Bossi. Ebos, welcome back to the show, my man.
Hey, what's happening?
All right, so obviously breaking news last night from our own Travis Branham, and that is that Kansas, the portal giveth, the portal taketh away, lost a guy from the high school ranks. We've talked about the Jayhawks consistently here. But LeBaron, what do we know about where he goes next? Because it certainly seems like the sheer depth of the Kansas backcourt may have been a factor there. But where do we think he could go from here?
Yeah, so first of all, a little background. The stuff with LeBaron had been ongoing for the last week to 10 days or so, with him saying, "Oh, I'm a little bit tentative about coming in because I'm worried about playing time," to, "Yeah, I'm back in," to last night just breaking down and him just making a snap decision that he's out. So the two names that come to immediate mind are Alabama, his home state school. At one point, of course, he was committed to his other home state school, Auburn, where he decommitted from about a year ago, roughly this time. And then Ole Miss, who has assistant coach Wes Flanagan that recruited him to Auburn at the time. Those are the two that come up. I think Alabama is the one to really watch. And now what's interesting is wherever LeBaron ends up, he's going to probably be going from a situation where he was going to have to commit to compete with guys who had been there and guys coming in from the portal, to another situation where he's going to have to compete with guys who had been there and who had also been in the portal. So with the options that are out there, I don't know how much he's immediately increasing his odds for playing time, but also he is going to be able to get maybe back closer to home, which is important with some kids. So Alabama, though, would definitely be the one school that I keep a real close eye on.
All right, good to know. It's also worth noting that his high school coach, Bill Armstrong, now being linked to one of the openings on Baylor's staff. So we'll see if they become a factor, although, of course, they do have Jeremy Roach as well as VJ Edgecombe coming in there. So we're not sure if they have the
And
opportunity.
Rob Wright and
Yeah.
lots of guys back there. They're going to have to run a 6-out offense next year somehow.
All right, good point. Good point. All right. Jaden Quaintance, he's interesting because McDonald's All-American, 5-star prospect and all that, but he is too young to be one and done eligible. And with G League Ignite going away, I think they might have been in a position to entice him here. But given that they're not there, there really is no domestic professional option for him to consider. So you really have an opportunity to recruit a 2-year 5-star prospect, which is really unprecedented in many ways, at least in the last couple of years. So what's the latest on him?
So yeah, obviously yesterday we reported that he's eliminated Arkansas. He was supposed to be having an in-home visit with Kentucky, and Kentucky decided to cancel that. So I think we can presume that Kentucky is out of the mix as well. He's visiting Memphis this weekend officially, beginning on Friday. He was at Louisville last week for an official visit. Now I think there's a couple others to be determined schools in there trying to maybe get in the mix some, but obviously all eyes are on Memphis right now in this visit to see if they can kind of lock him in. You know, he's a guy with all kinds of physical gifts. He's got long arms. He's athletic. He can play inside and out. He's a really toolsy, versatile player who needs a little bit of experience, yes. But you know, if Penny Hardaway can get this done this weekend, that's a huge feather in his cap and really a great addition to a team who's already doing pretty well in the transfer portal as it is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, now one player who is following John Calipari to Arkansas is Carter Knox, and there's a couple others that are in contention. Want to ask you about Boogie Flan. Now, he begins his official visit to Arkansas today on Wednesday. He and Billy Richmond, two players that were committed to Cal at Kentucky and very obviously considering following him to Arkansas. What do we know about Boogie at this point?
Yeah, with Boogie, he's certainly had others trying to get involved, but I think the fact that he's wasted little time in setting up a visit to Arkansas, and they've clearly prioritized getting him in, and a big sell with him going there was to play for John Calipari, with what John Calipari has done with guards. I think you got to really like Arkansas's positioning on this. I know they lost Orlando Antigua, who was central in his recruitment, but Chuck Martin is also a New York guy and also spent a great deal of time recruiting Boogie. So I feel like Arkansas is in a really good spot here. Maybe we could see Boogie take another visit or two, but I'd be kind of surprised if he really strays too far away from following Calipari to Arkansas.
All right, so Arkansas, the clear leader from Boogie Fland, according to our own Eric Bossi. Liam McNeely, originally committed to Indiana, opted out just a day after it was announced that Mike Woodson would return. So that was certainly raised some eyebrows there. Took an official visit to UConn this past week after the Jordan Brand Classic. What are we expecting from Liam at this point?
Yeah, so Liam just wrapped up his official visit to UConn. I know there's been a lot of buzz that maybe a commitment could be imminent, but I don't think we're going to see an immediate commitment to UConn out of Liam. Now, I think the back-to-back national champions are really, really good shape, but I also feel like we'll see him maybe take at least one more visit before things are all said and done. Kentucky, Michigan, maybe two teams that I would really keep an eye on as potential visiting spots. So I'm going to go ahead and place UConn as probably the leader and the team to beat, but I don't think they're all the way quite across that finish line just yet, and still may have to withstand maybe one more visit.
I know I wanted to ask you about a couple of young guys because one theme that we've been on the lookout for consistently, based on what's happened in the last two classes, is the wave of reclassifications. Now we've already seen a couple, most notably, of course, Cooper Flagg. Josan Sannon is the most recent example following his commitment to Arizona. Braden Burries in California is a player that we have long had our eye on. He's a little older for that 2025 class, and that is usually indicative of a player who could look to get to college earlier than originally slated, especially in this era of NIL. You were recently in California, Ebos, this past weekend, and now it sounds like maybe he's going to stay in 2025. What can you tell us about this situation?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a great shift with Braden Burries until it shifts again, right? Because that's always possible to
Right,
happen.
right.
But one of the biggest reasons, in addition to his age, that people thought he might go to 2024 was just the fact that not many guys are physically ready to make this jump. He's physically ready to make this jump. We're talking about a skilled, physically solid, dominant guy. If you want to compare him to someone in the class of 2024, he's got some Dylan Harper to his game and what he did, and he's coming off a sensational junior year. So he's ready to make that jump. But I had the opportunity to speak with him briefly, albeit, and he
Mhm.
told me that for right now, he's leaning towards staying in 2025. And not only that, doing some additional digging with some sources and some people who are in the know with his recruitment and trying to get involved with him. It may not just be going back to 2025. We may be looking at a situation where he now ultimately decides to wait until next spring, possibly, to make a decision
Hmm.
because he's sitting here and watching what's going on with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
What you commit to today, if you commit early, is nothing like what you're going to be arriving to for these guys. Now, there's not a lot of guys who have the power or just the positioning to be able to hold off. But as good as Braden Burries is, if he decided to wait until the spring, he's going to have his choice of any school that he wants to go to because he's that good. And I wonder if moving forward, we might not see a few more high end guys decide to do this. I just don't see the upside unless it's like a clear favorite and committing early right now with how wild things have gotten in the transfer portal. Because I, as an elite prospect, would want to know a lot more about who exactly I'm playing with. And you see that with we talked about LeBaron Fallon's decommitment earlier. He committed to one expected roster. It's totally different now, and that leads to his decommitment. So for those guys who are top 10, top 15 type players, if this is the way Burries chooses to play it, I think we could maybe see a few more decide to do that as well with holding things off.
I know one player who is already reclassed, but only up from 2026 to 2025, which means he's got at least another year left of high school, is AJ DiBanza, Massachusetts native who went out to prolific prep and is currently starring with the Oakland Soldiers, getting ready for the first session of the EYBL this coming weekend. Ebas, no surprise, Arkansas reached out almost right away. John Calipari extending that offer, but it sounds like DiBanza not planning any visits until after the summer. Is that right?
Yeah, I think AJ is pretty much on chill right now. He did take official visits to Auburn and USC during the high school season. Obviously, USC has gone through a coaching change with Andy Enfield going to SMU and then them bringing Eric Musselman over from Arkansas. And like you said, John Calipari reached out immediately, and the message to him is sent to AJ was essentially, "Hey, look, man, we're going to make Arkansas the new Kentucky," which makes sense. He made
Mm.
Kentucky into the Kentucky that it was. And obviously Kentucky is going to be Kentucky again with him gone. But, it's a pretty good pitch of basically like, look, I still expect to have one and dones. I still expect to do this. Obviously, UConn is close to home. They're heavily involved. There's a lot of people, pardon me, with AJ. But the plan now is there's a lot of guys who are going to do some spring and summer visits. AJ is not expected to do any of that. I think he's going to wait, survey, see what happens, and then in the fall decide which other schools do I want to visit.
All right, AJ DeBonza, certainly someone that is going to have his pick of shooters in the class of 2025. Currently, the number one ranked prospect in that class. Ebas, as always, thank you for your insider information and expertise. As always, you can follow Ebas and the rest of the team on 247sports.com for all the latest in the recruiting news, wall-to-wall team coverage, recruiting rankings, and transfer portal updates. Be sure to check it out, 247sports.com.